Some relationships don't begin with violence, they begin with enchantment, a glance that makes you feel seen, a voice that makes you feel safe. It all starts softly, warm and full of promise, but over time you realize you're slowly losing your sense of self. Little by little, through subtle words, mixed signals and carefully calculated silences. To a narcissist, every relationship is a psychological game. They don't need force or threats, they only need one thing: your emotional reaction. Every time you cry, get angry, or try to explain yourself, they win another invisible round. Because in their world, your emotions are fuel, the energy that feeds their illusion of control and hides the deep emptiness within. When you start to question things, they confuse you with lines like, "I was just joking," "You misunderstood me," or "You're too sensitive." And then you start to wonder, am I really the problem? No. That's exactly how they make you doubt your own perception. That's how they turn love into control and truth into a maze. In this video, we'll step deep into the world of psychological manipulation, where the narcissist mind games are fully exposed. From pretending not to understand to counterattacking the accuser, denying, mind reading and reframing, 5 tactics that can break even the strongest minds. And in the end, you'll understand this: once you recognize the game, you're no longer the pawn. You're the one who unplugs their entire matrix. 1. Fake ignorance. Pretending not to understand. There's something that seems small, almost harmless, but it forms the foundation of every psychological manipulation a narcissist uses. They pretend not to understand. They are not actually stupid, nor do they lack awareness. In fact, they understand perfectly well what's happening. But they know that the moment they act confused, you'll step right into the role of the explainer, soothing, clarifying, proving, and within seconds, they've gained control over your emotion. It often starts innocently. You share a concern or express your sadness. They look at you blankly and say calmly, "I don't understand what you mean. You're overreacting," or "I didn't know that upset you." On the surface, it sounds like awkwardness or emotional immaturity, like they just don't know how to communicate. But as time goes on, you start to see a pattern. Every time you share something that hurt you, they suddenly don't understand, and no matter how much you explain, they remain puzzled, as if you're speaking a language they've never heard before. This isn't ignorance, it's strategy. By pretending not to understand, they avoid responsibility. "I didn't know that was wrong" sounds innocent, but it's actually a subtle denial. It makes you question yourself. Maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe they really didn't know. And with just a few gentle phrases, they make you step back, blur the lines between right and wrong, and start doubting your own emotions. If you pay attention, you'll notice they're not clueless in other areas. They know exactly when to compliment you, when to apologize, when to turn on the charm. They can read people's emotions with precision. Someone who's that perceptive can't possibly not understand that their words or actions are hurtful. They understand perfectly. They just don't want to understand when it holds them accountable. The fake ignorance tactic is powerful because it traps you in the role of the endless explainer. The more you try to clarify, the more they shake their head. The more frustrated you become, the more confused they act. And when you finally lose your patience, they softly say, "See, you're getting emotional again." Suddenly, the entire conversation flips. It's no longer about their behavior, it's about your reaction. You leave the exchange feeling guilty, frustrated, and unsure. The perfect emotional cocktail for them to stay in control. Another version of fake ignorance is playing weak. When you tell them they've hurt you, they sigh. "I don't know how to love properly," or "I've been hurt before. That's why I reacted that way." In an instant, they shift from offender to victim. And because you're empathetic, you take another step back. You stop arguing and start helping. You think you can heal them, teach them how to love. But the truth is, they don't want to understand. They just want to see you keep trying. Every time you explain, forgive, or comfort them, they feel more powerful. The scary part is that this game is hard to recognize. You'll feel exhausted but tell yourself, maybe they didn't mean it. You'll feel hurt but guilty for being upset. You'll feel wounded but still apologize first. That's when they've won. They don't need to yell or insult you. They just need to make you question your own emotions. The only way out is to stop playing. When they say, "I don't understand," don't explain further, just respond calmly, "Maybe you don't want to understand," and stop there. No debate, no justification, no emotional labor. Every word you say is fuel for their game. They don't want truth, they want reaction. A person who truly cares will try to understand you, even if they make mistakes along the way. But a narcissist doesn't want to understand because understanding means they'd have to change, and change means losing control. When they say, "I don't understand," they're actually telling the truth, not because they can't, but because they won't. If you keep hoping they'll one day get it, you'll only drain yourself. That hope ties you to their matrix. The moment you accept that they'll never understand, things start to shift. You stop explaining, stop comforting, stop trying to make them see their mistakes. You step back, observe clearly, and begin reclaiming your power. Fake ignorance is the first move in their psychological chess game, and also the earliest door out. No one can remain confused forever unless they choose to be. Once you realize this isn't a lack of awareness, but a deliberate avoidance tactic, you'll lose the urge to explain. You'll smile, stay silent, and walk away from the board they built. The game only exists as long as you keep playing, and when you stop needing them to understand you, you finally begin to understand yourself, clearly, calmly, and more freely than ever before. 2. Deflect and attack, turning the tables on the accuser. When you finally speak up and point out something wrong in the way they treat you, you often believe it'll be an honest conversation. You hope that if you explain clearly, they'll understand, apologize, and things will change. But with a narcissist, truth is never the goal. They don't care about how you feel or what really happened. They care about one thing only: keeping control. Their weapon of choice is the deflect and attack tactic, divert and counterstrike. The moment you bring up an issue, they twist the story to make you the problem. If you say, "You hurt me when you said that," they'll instantly reply, "Oh, really? And you've never hurt me." If you say, "I don't deserve to be treated that way," they smirk and respond, "Funny, you're the one who made everything worse." Within seconds, the entire conversation flips upside down. Narcissists understand a fundamental human instinct. When falsely accused, everyone wants to defend themselves. They exploit that reflex to provoke an emotional reaction. You start talking faster, your voice rises, you try to prove your innocence, while they stay calm, arms crossed, maybe even smiling. In that moment of frustration, they've already won, because now, instead of focusing on their behavior, all the attention is on your reaction. They'll look at you and say, "See, you always overreact." That's reactive abuse, when a victim is pushed, provoked, and emotionally cornered until they explode, and then the narcissist uses that reaction as proof that you're the abuser. They turn your defensive anger into evidence that you're unstable. From the one who caused the pain, they suddenly become the victim of your unreasonable rage. Imagine discovering they've lied or cheated. You have proof. Messages, photos, their own words. You think the evidence is undeniable, but when you confront them, their response isn't guilt, it's cold and calculated. "You really went through my phone?" That's the real problem here. In a matter of seconds, you're dragged off course, no longer talking about betrayal, but about trust and privacy. And somehow you start feeling guilty as if you're the one who crossed the line. That's a perfect deflection. A narcissist doesn't need truth, they just need you emotionally destabilized. Once you lose composure, they gain power. They know that when people get angry, logic retreats, and that's when they rewrite the story. They'll start digging up old, irrelevant moments. "What about the time you yelled at me?" What about when you embarrass me in front of everyone? None of it matters, but you still feel the urge to explain, and the moment you do, they've won again. The truth is, they can't stand exposure. Every time they are confronted, it feels like their identity is crumbling. Instead of facing their own reflection, they hurl the mirror back at you. The more cornered they feel, the more aggressively they attack, because in their psychology, defense equals survival. Their ego is too fragile to handle being wrong, so every truth you bring forward gets twisted, reshaped, or thrown back as a new accusation. If you try to reason with them, they just switch tactics. Speak softly, you're cold. Raise your voice, you're toxic. Stay quiet, you're emotionally distant. There's no winning move because this isn't a conversation. It's theater. Every word you say becomes a prop that reinforces their chosen role, the misunderstood victim of a cruel partner. Escaping this game requires awareness. Their real goal isn't truth, it's your emotional reaction. When they attack, don't strike back. When they counter with, "And what about you?" stay calm and say, "We can talk about that later. Right now, we're talking about what you did." When they try to make you angry, stop, breathe, and choose silence. Your calmness is something they cannot handle. The only way to win this game is not to play. You don't have to prove anything to someone who has already decided not to listen. They don't want understanding, they want reaction. When you keep your voice steady and refuse to be dragged into their chaos, you take your power back. You're no longer a character in their script. You're the observer watching it unravel. A narcissist doesn't fear exposure. They fear losing control over your emotions. When you stop reacting, they lose their fuel. Your silence becomes a mirror reflecting their inner emptiness. And in that moment, the game ends. Not with noise or drama, but with the absolute stillness of your peace. 3. Deny and distract, the art of gaslighting and redirection. If the first two games of a narcissist are fake ignorance and deflect and attack, this one is the next stage of psychological warfare, deny and distract. It's one of their most disorienting weapons because it doesn't just attack your emotions, it erodes your very sense of reality. When you confront them with the truth, whether it's clear evidence, a statement they made, or something you witnessed firsthand, they respond with eerie calm. That never happened. If you insist, they shift gears. You must have heard me wrong. When you prove you didn't, they adjust again. If I said that, it wasn't what I meant. And when you point out that their meaning was obvious, they end it with, "You're imagining things." Within minutes, you move from certainty to confusion, from "I know what happened" to "maybe I'm losing it." That's the essence of gaslighting, and deny and distract is the tool that makes it possible. Their goal isn't to make you believe their version of events, it's to make you stop believing your own. Once you doubt your memory, intuition, and emotions, they don't have to be right anymore, because you've already lost your internal compass. Their denial always comes with a twist, a distraction carefully designed to pull you off balance. While you're still trying to make sense of their actions, they throw in a different issue, something sharp enough to trigger your emotions and redirect the conversation. For example, you say, "You lied to me." They respond, "You're obsessed with the past, maybe you need therapy." Or you say, "You promised to change, but didn't." They shoot back, "You're always trying to control everything." And just like that, the focus is gone. You're no longer the hurt one, you're now the problem. Narcissists do this because they understand a simple truth. When emotions spiral, logic fades. They can make you forget what you were angry about just by touching an old wound, your fear of abandonment, your guilt about not being enough, or some childhood insecurity. They know exactly where your psychological soft spots are, and they'll press them whenever their power feels threatened. This game doesn't usually explode in drama. It's subtle, quiet, and repeated over time until you start believing that you are the cause of every conflict. Eventually, you get too tired to argue and begin to accept the reality they've rewritten for you. If you've ever heard the line, "It's not what I said, it's how you heard it," that's their classic signature. It flips the entire issue into your perception. The debate is no longer about what they did, but about how you misinterpreted it. Over time, your confidence in your own judgment erodes. Sometimes, denial comes wrapped in fake gentleness. When you're upset, they soften their voice. "I don't want to fight, you're just stressed. Let me hold you." That gesture feels comforting, but it's not love. It's sedative control. It teaches you that peace only comes when you stop confronting them. At this point, the victim often lives in deep internal conflict. One part of you knows something is wrong, but another part clings to the illusion that maybe they didn't mean it. And that's exactly where they want you, suspended between reality and hope. When you no longer trust your own truth, you become easy to control. The way out begins with trusting your own experience more than their words. When they deny, stop trying to make them admit it. Remind yourself that you don't need their agreement to validate what you saw or felt. When they try to distract you, refuse to chase the bait. Return calmly to the original issue over and over without emotional charge. For example, they say, "You're just too sensitive." You reply, "Maybe, but what you said still hurt me." That calm firmness disarms them, because they only win when you react. When you stay grounded, look them in the eye, and refuse to get pulled into confusion, their tactics lose power. Another key is to recognize the pattern. Narcissists don't deny once, they deny every time. Whenever truth threatens them, they throw up a smokescreen. Seeing that pattern for what it is keeps you from being shocked each time it happens. Once you expect denial, you stop needing proof to defend yourself. You already know the script, and that knowledge itself sets you free. Deny and distract is how a narcissist bends reality to maintain dominance. They don't want you to see the truth. They want you to question yourself. And when they see that flicker of confusion in your eyes, they know they've regained control. But when you hold steady, when you trust your memories, your feelings, and your perception, their illusion collapses. They can deny 1,000 times, but it only takes one moment of self-trust to shatter their entire matrix. That's the moment you finally step out of their psychological maze. No yelling, no fighting, just quiet, clear certainty, the unshakable knowing that you saw what you saw. 4. Psychic reading, mind reading, and emotional control. After the first 3 games have left you disoriented and unsure of yourself, the narcissist moves into a more refined phase, mind reading. At this stage, they no longer need to shout, blame, or deny. Instead, they target the deepest part of you, your emotions and your perception. They start speaking for you, defining your feelings and controlling your emotional responses without you even realizing it. Emotional responses are part of what being a... It begins with phrases that sound thoughtful, even tender. "I know what you're thinking. You don't really feel that way. You're just saying that. You don't mean it." At first you may find it comforting. It feels like you finally met someone who gets you, without you having to explain. But over time you discover the truth. They're not understanding you, they're rewriting you. When they say, "You're not angry, just tired," they strip away your right to be angry. When they say, "You're not sad, you're overreacting," they erase the reality of your pain. And when they say, "I know you still love me, don't deny it," they're stepping into your inner world, forcing you to live out a story they've written for you. That's the moment you start losing the boundary between what you truly feel and what they tell you you're feeling. This is one of the most dangerous forms of manipulation because it happens quietly. There's no shouting, no open conflict, just gentle-sounding words that slowly steal your emotional autonomy. You start doubting your own emotions. You think, maybe they're right, I am overreacting, or maybe I am too sensitive, or they're just helping me manage my feelings, and little by little you stop trusting yourself. Narcissists know that everyone longs to be understood. They exploit that need to become the one who understands you best, not to love you, but to control you. They study you meticulously, how your tone changes when you're nervous, how your breathing shifts when you're hurt, how your face tightens when you're scared. They use that data to predict and then direct your emotions. They know exactly when you're about to cry, when you're about to give in, when you're most vulnerable, and they seize that moment to tighten their grip. Once they've mapped your reactions, they start steering them. If you say, "I feel hurt," they'll counter, "No, you're just jealous." If you say, "I need space," they'll smirk, "You're just running away because you're afraid of closeness." If you say, "I think I'm done," they'll whisper, "You don't mean that. You could never leave me." Every sentence sounds insightful, even loving, as if they know you better than you know yourself. But in reality, they're redefining your emotions to dictate your behavior. Gradually, you start living inside their world. You no longer know what you truly feel, you only know what you're allowed to feel to keep them calm. You adjust your words, tone, and expressions to avoid their disapproval. You become hyper-aware of their moods and start editing yourself to stay safe. And when you live too long inside someone else's predictions, you lose the ability to feel authentically. You stop living in your emotions and start living in theirs. Escaping this kind of control requires something that sounds simple but is profoundly difficult: reclaiming the right to define your own feelings. When they say, "I know what you're thinking," respond calmly, "No, you don't. Only I do." When they say, "You don't really feel that way," reply, "My feelings are valid. You don't have to agree, but you can't deny them." Short, steady statements like these bring you back to the center of your emotional reality. Another powerful habit is journaling your emotions. Write down what you felt, when, and why. Those notes become undeniable evidence from your own perspective. When they try to rewrite the past, you'll have the truth in your own handwriting to remind you, "I know what I felt. I wasn't imagining it." Most importantly, remember this: genuine understanding never makes you smaller. A person who truly loves you creates space for you to be fully yourself. A narcissist does the opposite. They shrink that space, distort it, and then call it care. If you notice that you're getting quieter, that you're second-guessing every emotion before expressing it, that's not peace. That's control. The mind-reading game is the pinnacle of their illusion of power. But that power exists only as long as you believe they know you better than you know yourself. The moment you wake up and realize that no one has the right to define your emotions for you, the illusion collapses. They can try to play the prophet, but their voice loses all authority once you rediscover your own. And that is the moment you reclaim your freedom, not through conflict, but through clarity. A quiet, unshakable realization rises within you. My emotions belong to me. No one else can touch them. 5. Reframing reality. Redefining the story and rewriting the truth is the final and most dangerous stage in the narcissist's 5-part playbook of manipulation. After making you doubt your emotions, lose your sense of direction, and surrender your voice, they move into the phase where they no longer just twist your feelings, they rewrite the entire story. This is called reframing reality. They don't simply deny the truth, they rebuild it, crafting an alternate version of reality where they are the victim and you are the villain. When you say, "You insulted me," they respond, "I only said that because you drove me crazy." When you say, "I'm hurt because you lied to me," they calmly reply, "I didn't lie, I just didn't tell you because you overreact." And if you try to defend yourself, they repeat the mantra of this game, "You're remembering it wrong." Their goal isn't to make you believe they're right, it's to make you uncertain that you are. The moment you hesitate, they slip into that gap of doubt and plant their version of truth. What makes this tactic so dangerous is that it preys not just on your logic, but on your memory and emotions. Narcissists understand how memory can bend under emotional pressure. So, whenever you're vulnerable, they seize the opportunity to retell the story, calmly, confidently, with enough detail and logic to make you question your own recollection. First, you resist. Then you fall silent. Eventually, you agree, just to end the argument. But once you agree once, the next time is easier. And little by little, you become a collaborator in the rewriting of your own reality. A classic example is when they hurt you but turn it back around. "You're the reason I acted that way. If you hadn't yelled, I wouldn't have said that." That statement reframes their action as a reaction and your pain as the cause. It doesn't erase what happened, it merely changes the context. That's the genius of their manipulation. They don't destroy the facts, they distort the meaning. Over time, this reframing becomes their most powerful tool, a way to control without ever needing to raise their voice. Once you start believing that everything is my fault, they no longer need to dominate you. You begin to dominate yourself. You apologize even when you've done nothing wrong. You try to please them even when you're exhausted. You choose silence because everything I say gets twisted. And in that silence, they become the unquestioned center of your reality. This is the stage where many victims completely lose their sense of self. You no longer know what's real or imagined. You stop believing you have the right to feel hurt, angry, or disappointed. Every emotion has to pass through their filter before you're allowed to feel it. In truth, this is emotional brainwashing. Like a psychological conditioning loop, you become programmed to react in ways that serve their narrative. Every time you push back, they reframe it to trigger guilt. "I'm only doing this for your own good. I reacted that way because I love you. I didn't do anything wrong, you're just overthinking." These words sound soft, but they're velvet-covered chains, gentle enough to wear, strong enough to hold. The irony is that reframing reality not only confuses you, it isolates you. Because when you try to explain what's happening to others, they rarely see it. The narcissist behaves differently around outsiders, charming, considerate, graceful. Meanwhile, you, the one being manipulated, begin to look emotional, dramatic, too sensitive. They subtly plant the idea in other people's minds that you are the unstable one. In doing so, they don't just occupy your mind, they infiltrate your social reality as well. The only way out of this psychological labyrinth is to reclaim your own reality. Start by trusting your first impressions, not their rewritten script. When they say, "You're remembering wrong," respond calmly, "Maybe you remember it differently, but what I remember still matters." When they say, "You're overreacting," answer, "My emotions don't need your measurement to be valid." Calmness is their greatest enemy, because when you don't react, when you simply stand firm in what you know, their entire illusion collapses. This game survives only through your self-doubt. Once you stop doubting yourself, they lose their power completely. Remember, someone who truly loves you will expand your reality, not shrink it. They'll help you see yourself more clearly, not make you question your sanity. A narcissist builds a hall of distorted mirrors around you so that every reflection you see is warped through their gaze. But once you recognize that reframing reality is just a way to dodge accountability, everything begins to make sense. You don't need to argue, explain, or convince anyone. You simply step out of the game. When you walk away, they'll keep trying to reframe the story, saying you betrayed them, that you're ungrateful, too emotional, too cold. But now you understand, they're just talking to their own reflection. The truth doesn't need validation to exist, it only needs you to stop abandoning it. And when you hold on to that truth, quietly, firmly, without needing to shout, every psychological game they've built disintegrates in the stillness of your peace. After everything, the most terrifying part isn't the tactics a narcissist uses, it's the moment you realize you've forgotten who you truly are in the middle of their psychological maze. They make you doubt your emotions, blur your memories, and twist your truth. until you can no longer tell the difference between love and control. But remember this, the moment you turn your gaze inward, the game loses its power. Every manipulation relies on one thing, your reaction. When you stop reacting, when you stay calm and clear, their entire matrix collapses. Don't seek justice from someone who doesn't know how to love. Seek the truth within yourself. Because real power doesn't come from making them admit what they did. It comes from no longer needing their acknowledgement at all. If you're healing from a relationship like this, know that you were never weak. You were simply distorted by a false version of love. And now that you're beginning to see clearly, silence is no longer something to fear. It's the first light of your freedom.